progress. We are told that we've progressed so much as a species, of a civilization, that right now in this current time, this is the epitome, this is the top, we are the greatest civilization ever, that we are just in this perpetual state of progress, of improvement. And in many ways, that couldn't be further from the truth. None more so than work, modern day work, which is simply wage slavery. We're fed this notion that we've never had it better. You know, life has never been better. But I really question that. The more I look back and learn about history, the more I dive down the rabbit hole, the more red pills I take, peel back the curtain, look past the veil, I think back in the past, we had it better on so many levels. And that this modern life, modernity just lies and gaslights us left, right, and center into believing that this is as good as it's ever been. I've spoken about this. So modern, the modern 9 to 5, the 9 to 5, the Monday to Friday 9 to 5, which is increasingly becoming 8 to 6. I mean, it's not really 9 to 5 with everyone's commute. Now the work hours are becoming more and more 8 to 6, and more people are having to go from Monday to Saturday. But we're told this is progress because, hey, we don't work 16 hours a day and 18 hours a day like we used to do in the factories. But pre-industrial revolution times, the industrial revolution just changed, fundamentally shifted so much about human nature. It's scary. And you look back on this and you look back on human history as a whole, but let's go just before the Industrial Revolution. I was looking at this, I was looking into this, right? There's this notion, we're being told, I remember growing up and at school and modern life, that back in the old days, we used to just get worked to the bone. Life was brutal. It was horrible. We used to work all the time and slave away and all day long, and there was child labor and it was all backbreaking, painful stuff. Man, you look into it, a lot of that's bollocks, man. A lot of that is bollocks. Pre-industrial revolution times, we used to work around about 100 days a year less on average. 100 days a year less on average. Most of the work, I've mentioned before, most of the work was done, right? Generally speaking, you're working at a farm or at your home or local business and whatnot. And the reason why we work so much less was because it was in tune with nature. It was cyclical. It was based on the weather, right? So often in winter times, harvest crops won't grow, so there wasn't much work to do. We also had so many more holidays, so many more celebrations and festivals than we do now. And so whilst the days were longer, we were told, we used to work so many more hours a day when we did work. Yeah, that was true, but there wasn't like an actual set schedule. You would work and you got tired, you'd have a rest, go for a nap, have a break, and then come back and finish your day's work. And sure, don't get me wrong, like a lot of it was tough. It was hard, backbreaking stuff, and gathering the crops and the food and doing many other bits and pieces. But like I said, it was done with the yearly cycle of things, and you'd have huge amounts of time off, relax. You'd work predominantly at home or very close, so there's no commuting. The family would be together all the time. They'd work together. The parents would be teaching the children the ropes, the way of life, how to get by, how to survive, how to work. So the kids were always with their families. It was multi-generational households. The grandparents lived at home with the family, and the parents and the kids, and all together. And of course, you had such a community. You had your village, your town. There, you knew your neighbor. You had a relationship with your neighbor. There was no TV. TV destroyed the notion of community. There was no sitting at home and watching TV. So no, people were out and about and getting to know each other's neighbors. The kids were hanging out with the other kids. There was trust. It was a high trust society. Your kids can go off and play and disappear into the woods, right? And no one would bat an eyelid. It would be normal. There'd be no worries. There's no worry about some bunch of random strange looking people kidnapping your kids and doing horrible things. There was that community. There was that togetherness. And then Industrial Revolution starts, and the men were the first to get dragged out of the home. Again, we get told in modern life that all the women got dragged out of the home. We need women back in the home. We all need to be back in the home. The men were the first to get dragged back. They were thrown into the factories. Now, they were working 16, 18 hours a day. Why? Because the machines had to be running 24/7. So for the first time in history now, us humans had to adapt their bodies and their lives and timetables to a machine. Not technology adapting to us. We were adapting to it in a big way. And people were being worked to death. Literally worked to death. So Mr. Henry Ford comes along. This is where the lies of modernity see through them. So many people champion Henry Ford. He came along, he got us working from 18 hours a day and put it down to 8 hours a day. What a legend. What a legend, eh? The only reason he figured out to put it down to an 8-hour workday was it allowed people just enough time to recover. So they wouldn't literally get worked to death. You'd have just enough time to recover, come back and be productive the next day and the next day and the next day. But it wasn't too much time. See, he, along with other people, had figured out you can't allow too much downtime. And especially in modern life. Because here's the thing. What happens with the old modern 9 to 5. And I think I mentioned this on another video once. You work 9 to 5 with a commute. You basically don't have any real time to do anything else, really. You can go, you can if you really want, but also it's draining. You lose energy. It's tough. So what do? You go and sit yourself down in front of the TV and you consume. And when you're watching TV, what do you see? You see adverts. And then, of course, we're told we have to make the most of our life, right? Make the most of your free time. And because you've got such little free time, you get 2 days a week of full free 48 hours, right, of freedom, maybe a few hours in the weekend. You've got to make the most of that time, along with watching all these ads and stuff. So what do? You have to do things. You have to experience life. You have to go there and do this and do that and pay for a concert, pay to go to the football match and pay for this and to the club and to the bars and buy drinks and then buy nice things and fancy stuff to come home to and have a nice comfy home and gadgets and everything else that makes modern living just a bit nicer. So you're just perpetually paying in to the system, boosting GDP and maintaining this illusion of progress and growth. Because if you give people enough free time, and all the evidence is saying if we move to a 4-day work week and we move to a 4 to 5 hour work day, productivity doesn't just stay the same, it will increase. right? There are some jobs that need the 8 hours, maybe a little bit more. For the most part, most jobs, especially office jobs, all the research is out. You have a person working 8 hours a day, they do on average around about 2.5 to 3 hours of actual work a day. So being there 8 hours is fucking pointless, right? And you lower the hours, they've got more time, freedom, they're happier, they got more energy, they get more work done in less time, they're more productive. But the higher ups will never let that happen because they understand you give them that extra time, you give them that extra freedom, they won't actually seek out experiences as much. They won't spend as much money. They would actually find there would actually be more, there'd be more downtime, more chill time. They'd read more books. They spend more time in nature, more time with family and friends and relaxing than trying to squeeze every little ass drip of the minimum amount of freedom they have by spending it and growing the machine. And you look back in history, we had so much more downtime. We had so much more freedom. We had so much more time with the people that mattered the most. We had so much more community and growth. We were more connected with the planet, with nature, with the cycle, the natural cycle of things, the yearly, the weekly, the monthly, the yearly cycle of things. Times were more simple. We were more self-sufficient, more self-reliant. And it seems like we traded a lot of that in for more comfort, you know? And I'm not saying those times, pre-industrial revolution, the hundreds of years, thousands of years ago it was utopia. It's perfect. There was things that legit were horrible about those times and difficult. I mean, top of my head is infant mortality, for example, was through the roof compared to today. Less voting rights for everybody else. Mind you, what the hell does voting do anyway these days? Trying to think other things at the top of my head. Modern medicine. It's obviously so much better. People are living longer in that regard, and they're healthier in that regard. There is a plenty that made things tough. Right, you went through one bad winter, and you basically famine and starvation. Right, you're always teetering on the edge of that. Though, when I've had debates about people about this, a lot of people in America, for example, are one medical bill away from starvation, from being on the streets and or being fired from their job. They have this false sense of job security, and more people are finding out that that's not the case. You get fired and they're on the streets. They could be very well be starving themselves. How many people, I've seen some horrific stats on how little people have savings these days. People can't barely save. The average person can't save anything at the end of every month. Most people don't have anything to fall back on. So I don't think we've not progressed in that way. It's just doesn't look like to me, or I question it. I just want to open my own eyes and open other people's eyes. Are we this illusion, this notion that we're progressing, where we've never had it better? And it's clear to me that in many, many ways, that is simply not the case. It feels like we've traded in more of our time, given away more of our time, more of our freedom, more of our labor, of our body, of our energy, of our minds, for the sake of a few comforts and luxuries. Maybe technology's better, of course. Wow, we can fly across the world. How amazing. We can order a fast food delivery. We don't have to cook anymore. We've got shopping malls. Yeah, all of that stuff. Like, there's plenty to be happy with in modern life. But look what we're giving up. And do we have to give it up? Is it a necessary trade-off? I don't think it is. Like I mentioned, everything's saying we go to less days a week, less hours a day. We'll be more productive. People will be happier. People will be more fulfilled. People have more free time to do the things that are really, truly meaningful to them. And yet, too many people are not even aware of this. That there is a better way, that there used to be a better way for most of our lives. And we can make it better. Just needs more of us to wake up and simply say no. Which country was it? Greece. I think Greece are moving to a, quote me if I'm wrong, they're moving to a 12-hour workday, 11-hour workday or something like this. I think Greece are moving to more hours, like mandatory workdays are going to something like 10 to 11 hours a day or something crazy like that. What the fuck? There's a better way, boys and girls. Slavery wasn't abolished. You know, it was, the definition just changed. This wage slavery, this is a big, big part. Everyone talks about the mental health crisis that we're all having and crisis of meaning and everything else. It's very difficult to find meaning in a world of 40-hour work week plus, 40 plus hours a week working, plus commute, just exhaustion, mental, physical exhaustion, tiredness, propaganda of consumerism and everything else. It's very hard to find meaning in that world. And the people in charge, they know that. They know that. But never ever forget, boys and girls, I think we actually really, truly hold the power.